Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to be making some picture frames today out of just throwaway materials. I'm using some corrugated cardboard, and we're going to be using some food packaging as well to make some little picture frames. These are very simple, and I don't think they're really appropriate to hang on the wall because I don't have any mechanism for hanging. I guess you could, put a little thread loop or something there to hang if you wish. But they're really, just a little something to prop on a shelf. But if you made them just a little bit smaller, they would be really, really good toppers for a journal. And it's really fun to play with corrugated cardboard, so that's what we're going to do. There's such a vintage flair to all of these that if you have any old photos, of loved ones, or even somebody that you don't know who they are. I have no idea who this child is. This was in a stack of photos that my friend Connie had just accumulated over time. And she gave me some of those when I was visiting her in Tennessee back in April. Anyway, it's fun to make photo frames, picture frames, and they make really great journal toppers too if they're the right size. So let's just get right to it. We're going to use two different kinds of paper, as I mentioned. I have a piece of corrugated cardboard here. This is a couple of different sizes. What do I want to start with? Here's one that maybe is a little bit smaller. And I want to cut an opening that's about that big. And I want the flutes to be going up and down. So this isn't going to work because that's the flutes, which are the bumpy parts, the corrugation inside. They're sticking up this way, and this is about the size that I want my opening to be. So I'm not going to use that one. We'll go ahead and use this, I guess. This has two levels of flutes. As you can see, actually it has three. There's 3 layers of flutes there, if you can see there. One teeny tiny layer and a couple of bigger ones. This might be the one. There's 1 layer of flutes. And we'll just cut this down to size. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to spray with a little water. And I don't want it too saturated, but I want that water to soak in. I'm going to set that aside. The flat surface on corrugated cardboard is called the liner layer, and there's two liners, front and back, and the flutes are in the middle. I want this to soak in for a little bit, so I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to bring in the material for the other frame that we're going to make. And that's just one with a food packaging box. What do I do with all my long rulers? Oh, my desk. I know I often say, my desk is such a mess. You have no idea. And you always respond and say, yes, Anne, we have every idea. We are crafters too. Thank you for understanding how messy my desk can get. I think I'm going to, let's see, this is the size that I want to make the opening on the corrugated cardboard. And this is the size I want to make the opening of this cracker box. So I'm going to kind of keep that around for reference. And I'm just going to start trimming this cracker box down. Just using my aluminum ruler. If I could find the longer one, I would be using that, but the little one is usually always handy. Using that and my craft knife. Oh, I just realized I have the wrong lighting system on. I will be right back. There, I hope that lighting is a little bit better now. I certainly do not have a fine studio lighting here, and so I was... when I said lighting system, that might have been gilding the lily just a little bit. It's a couple of lamps and the overhead lights here in my basement, but I don't usually have the overhead lights on when I'm here. filming. There we go. Excuse me. There we go. And I didn't have a specific size in mind here. Oh, excuse me. So sorry about that. In fact, I'm going to pause it again for a moment here. So the good news is when I paused to clear my throat, I found my my longer ruler. Okay, let's see. This is the frame I'm going to just do some collaging on. So I think I want that opening to be about like that. So I'll cut, whoops, Anne. I think I'm going to make it just a little bit longer. Maybe something like that will be appropriate. Yeah, a photo of either of a person, you know, or a place, or maybe it's a little drawing. Maybe you've done a little watercolor piece or something that you'd like to frame to put on a journal cover. These are all frames, you know, that you can set them on their on a shelf, or you can put them on a journal cover. That's why we're not really finishing the back, because if they're on a journal cover, they're just going to glue right down. How about, I'm just going to kind of draw around my little template. And this is going to be our opening. Let me see how this is doing. I don't want it to dry out too much. I want it to soak in. Give that just another bit of a spritz. And then I'm going to cut this out, and then we're going to go back to the corrugated cardboard. So I'm sort of doing a couple of different tasks at once. I'm extending the line that I drew here so that I can tell where that line is going to end. It always feels so good to use packaging to me. I just love making a pretty craft project out of something that would have gone right. It's 100% awesome. Look, it says so right here. I just love using food packaging. It's just such a satisfying thing because you're making something beautiful out of trash. And this thin cardboard, some people call it chipboard, it's a nice weight. It really is. There we go. And because I've put those extensions on my little rectangle that I've drawn in there, it's easy to get my ruler lined up. Here we go. I'll do a little collaging on that bit. But first, let's look at, I pulled out a couple of photos. I'm saving some of the old portraits that Connie gave me for another purpose. And so for this video, just to kind of show you, and I'll probably use these in a journal too, I found a couple of photos in an old college yearbook. Every once in a while, I'll pick up a college yearbook at an estate sale or a thrift store. And so I just love them from back in the, I think this is from maybe very late 50s, very early 60s. And I thought this woman, and her name is Norma, and it's from some women's college. I think it's in Virginia. And I just thought she just looked fun, didn't she? What a beautiful smile. She apparently, according to her yearbook, was a major in elementary education with minors in English, history, and social studies. Wasn't she diligent in wanting to become a teacher and a member of the Future Teachers of America? So well done, Norma, with your plans. I hope you had a good and long and happy career. We're going to dress up this part of the frame that's going to go with Norma. Now this is sitting, absorbing that water a little bit more. And I'm going to now come in, we're turning our attention back to the corrugated cardboard. And I'm going to pull off, I'm just going to dig in there. My objective is to pull off bits of, the majority of this liner layer, as it's called. And I've softened it with that water. And this is just a little, I don't even know. I think I used to use this when I was using my Cricut more. It's just a little, like a little scraping tool. You could use a dull butter knife. You could use almost anything that's flat and just peel off that liner layer. Most of that liner layer. Some people like to float their corrugated cardboard in a bowl of water for a little while. But for me, I always have a spray bottle of water that I use for watercolor. I use for, many different things. Now I'm not going to, some of these pieces of the liner, these thin layers of the liner, I'm going to leave bits and pieces of those because I like that look. I'm going to come back in with some gesso and needs to be a little more damp there. I'm going to come back in with some gesso and smear that over these flutes because that gives it, to me, that gives it a really interesting, it looks like you've ripped out a wall in a building. It looks like you're looking at the construction behind the plaster, behind the drywall of an old building. I guess an old building would have mostly plaster and not drywall. This is a bigger piece than we're going to need for this frame, but again, it's the piece I had sitting around. There's no lack of cardboard in our, corrugated cardboard in our lives, that's for sure. Make sure I'm running here, yes. After all my stops and starts to begin with. There we go, I think I'll peel off a little bit of this down here. A little bit of spritz. And some of it comes off easily and some of it wants to stay behind, and it's good to have both. Corrugated cardboard is really, really nice for a journal topper. As you can see, it really is interesting to take off, see what's here. And you have some pieces that have really thick fluting, some that have it really small and dense. But once you start looking at that profile of corrugated cardboard, you will find some interesting things. I think I'm going to cut this down to the size that I want for my frame. And I think I want it to be about like this. Now this makes it easy. Corrugated cardboard, again, is sort of a self-measuring material. I'm going to come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flutes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flutes. So I'm going to cut there. And then I'll get the depth. I did a little a little research on corrugated cardboard at one point because I was just interested in what the different components were. Now, I never knew until recently that the bumpity part was known as the fluting. But I wrote down some fun facts. Corrugated cardboard was invented in the 1850s in England, and it's been improved many times since then. But it started being used in the US for shipping in 1903. Before that, most of the shipping was done in wooden crates, and wooden crates continued for some time. But the most common source for the wood pulp in corrugated cardboard is pine. So if you're pining away for a project, you can use some corrugated cardboard. All right, I'm going to cut out this bottom, cut this off. Again, I'm not doing any measuring at all here. Now I'm going to cut out my opening. And I'm just going to mark there and there. And I'm going to cut here and here. Let's see if I can see that marking. Two, three, four, five. It looks like this fluting would be difficult to cut through, but really once that liner piece is cut away, it's quite easy. And this piece that I'm cutting away in the middle, that's going to be my opening for my picture frame. I will definitely use that for a small topper. There we go. I didn't get that quite cut all the way. There we go. Now, the main part is done here. What I like to do, I'm going to bring a little plastic cutting board here just to protect my surface, but I like to get out my bottle of gesso and just do a little rubbing with my finger along the tops of some of these flutes. And you can see I've left some of that liner there. That's fine. That's kind of what I want. And it's going to look like paint left behind. Well, because it is paint in a sense, but it's going to kind of have that look of, you know, that you tore into a wall, you're doing some some demolition, and there's a little bit of paint that's left there. You don't have to do it over the whole thing. You don't have to do it at all, but use a colored paint or something if you want. But I really like the gesso. There's enough density to gesso that it adheres well. There we go. Smear it on a little bit more on that liner paper that's left behind. There we go. Now you could come in with some of your distress inks and really kind of grunge it up if you like. It's pretty grungy as it is. There we go. Do we want to continue with this? Yeah, let's go ahead. I am going to bring my Distress ink in. Get the edges here. So that looks, I would normally wait until my gesso had dried a little bit more, but it's a pretty fast drying medium. I think I'm going to avoid this corner for right now, and I'll come back and finish distressing that corner when it's a little more dry. Clean up my mess just a little bit more there. There we go. This is the piece that I was thinking of using here. And I hope there we go. This is also from that yearbook. Again, I do not know who this gal is. Her name is Louise. I know that much from the yearbook. And I just thought she looked like she was, I think she was a dorm officer or something, which is why she was in the yearbook in this pretty little portrait. This must be, that's not a 1960s look. That's got to be a 50s sort of portrait. But anyway, Louise is there smiling and happy to be in her yearbook. And I think she just might look really nice propped up on the wall here in my craft room. I'm going to set, to put these together, I just center the picture, and then I washi tape on the back. I should get, where's that little baby that I had here earlier. I'll give you another look. Here, I just washi taped him on the back because then I can change it out anytime I want. This is not beautiful. It doesn't need to be. If I were going to put this on the front of a journal, I would be, nobody would ever see this. This would just be glued straight down. But propped up on the shelf in my craft room, there's no reason to. I could cover the back if I wanted to, but I'm not worried about the back looking beautiful. So Louise will look beautiful here on her own. Why don't we go back to our cracker box? I'm going to let this gesso dry a little bit more. We are juggling the projects today, aren't we? And we're going to go back to, what was this? Norma. We're going to go back to Norma's frame here. We're just going to collage here, and I'm going to pull out my Mod Podge. I have a little plastic bowl and a little bit of Mod Podge. I don't use a lot of Mod Podge, but I feel fine about using it for a project like this because I want it to, oh, Anne, good heavens, I got way too much in there. There we go. Yeah, I was trying to twist my jar around so that I wouldn't spill any, and then I ended up spilling even more. So that wasn't good. Hope I didn't waste any. I always cover my Mod Podge jar with a piece of plastic bag and makes it, keeps the Mod Podge from sealing its own jar shut. What I'm going to do with this to Mod Podge this one is I'm going to pull out just a few different kinds of papers, and I'm going to do my all my cutting. And these are just sort of narrow pieces. Here I have one coffee dyed book page and one piece of music page that's very small. Oh, Little Women. There's Joe and Lori. What a bad illustration. Little piece of music page, and this is with small notes. Doesn't have to be, but there we go. And then I have, just to get some color in there for Norma, I have a little printed sheet from somewhere. And I'm just going to tear off a little bit of that to get some of those violets. I'm not worried about big pieces because these are little narrow strips that I'm going to be collaging on, but I want to get my paper torn so that I can collage the whole thing rather quickly and let it begin to dry. Let's see, I might do, now that I have the margins torn off, I think I'm just going to hand tear these little strips. And then I'll just have a little pile of these scraps. And I can make short work of the collage process. I think collaging sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming, but for a really small project like this, I like having fewer choices. I like just being able to have a few types of paper, and I feel like it kind of makes the thing a little more cohesive. If I was doing a big master board, I'd be getting a big variety of pieces there, but and of types, but I don't like it that I made such a mess out of that Mod Podge, but so it goes. All right, this is just a little sponge brush, and I'm going to be putting things down little by little. I will layer things up. And yes, I will be going around, I'll be extending my pieces beyond the edges, but I will trim all those off later. And Mod Podge is good in thin layers. It will dry clear. And you can go in and put more layers on if you wish. And just kind of see how this turns out. I like to Mod Podge the base surface and then come back in with another thin coat on top. And everything will, it's going to have a really nice gloss when we're done. Mod Podge has a pretty good self-leveling property. So it's probably not going to puddle too much. This strip is a little bit narrow because I want to cover that whole cracker box. I'm going to patch it a little bit. So do you have old photos? Tell me if you have old photos that you're interested in framing, either to display in your home or maybe your office, or to put on a journal cover. I think most of us do have some old photos around, or, There's so many books that are just filled with wonderful old photos as well. It might be something from your community. Maybe you have a postcard. Oh, I got 2 different kinds there. It's not good. Could be an old postcard and you just cut your opening to suit the postcard that you have that you'd like to frame. And thrift stores are filled with frames, not the metal frame isn't something that we would glue on top of a journal, but making our own, I think, is nice, because honestly, what would have happened to that cracker box? It would have met a sad and trashy end. But we are saving it and making something beautiful. I'm actually going to be teaching a class with this project at the arts group that my neighborhood seniors group is. They asked me to, I taught several classes there for different kinds of recycled craft projects. And this is one that we're going to do later in June. So that will be fun. The base coat and the top coat. Up. See, I'm covering up some of those corners where I've, cut into, cut away from my, oh, I like that with all the notes. Let's have that. There we go. And there we go there. So this is going to be a little wet for us to have Norma try it on, or not Norma. Yeah, Norma. It's going to be a little wet to have her try it on for size right here. Although I guess I can just sort of gingerly hold this on top of her, even with my sticky fingers, that we can kind of see. Oh, she looks great. She looks great there, doesn't she? Yeah, we'll get a much better look at her at the end of the video, but I'm going to set this aside, and now we're going to come back to Louise. And oh my gosh, what a mess I have here. Where can I put this sticky thing? There we go. All right, here is our corrugated cardboard. And what I'd like to do here is, well, I'm going to wipe off my little plastic surface here. And this is, well, that's still not quite dry. There we go. I think I would like to decorate this with just a few of these little flowers. I got a bunch of these tiny little paper flowers. They were just individual flowers. Actually, I'll grab them right off the shelf and show you. I got them. There was 3 different bottles. They're like adorable little milk bottles. This is a Michael's brand. I got these. I got 3 bottles: a white, a coral, and this green, at an estate sale some weeks ago. And I just got them for practically nothing, and I haven't used them for anything. And I mean, look how many flowers are in here, and it's this times 3 with what I have. But I took out a few of them and just started layering them up. And put a little pearl on top, held some together with a little brad. And I thought that these might be really nice for decorating this picture frame. But this is still not wet, or this is still wet. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until all my gesso and my Mod Podge dies, and then we'll come back and we'll finish the decorating and finish the trimming on both of these picture frames. I'm going to get out my heat gun and I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, these are both dry now. A little bit of the heat gun and a little bit of time sitting out in the sunshine on the back porch, and they're lovely. And let's trim this one up first. And if I had torn nicely and you wanted that, rough interior, you could leave it. I could leave it like that, but I'm going to go ahead and trim these up so that my collage pieces are even with the edges of my cardboard. Easily done. Let's see if I can go boldly freehand here without my straight edge. The cracker box is sort of forming its own straight edge here, isn't it? There we go. Quite a few steps to these, but as you can see, they're very, very simple steps. Now I might have to bring in the scissors here. I think it'll probably look okay from the front. Yeah. And I'm just going to do a scissors trim here, and then I'll just truss the edge, and then we'll get Norma put into her frame. What am I going to do with Norma? I got her out of that yearbook mostly for demonstration purposes, but I like her so much, I think she's going to go up on the shelf in my craft room. Or do you know what? I could go ahead and make a journal topper out of Norma. Why don't I do that? She has volunteered her services. Well, she was volunteered by me. So what's right side up? Okay, I don't know if this Mod Podge surface is going to take any ink. I guess it takes a little bit of ink. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Even if it's just a little subtle amount of ink, it usually helps to finish things off, makes it look not quite so raw. That's what even inking on a dark color is often a useful thing to do. I think I cut into my actual picture frame there instead of just cutting off the extra collage paper. There we go. Now let's go back to Norma. What do you got going here for us, girlfriend? Oh, doesn't she look pretty? She looks great. I'm going to trim her down a little bit, and I'm just going to use some washi tape to get her into place. Oh, gee, I think she looks great. Can you imagine her as an eager young teacher? That's one nice thing about taking photos of real people, not just mass-produced, and redistributed. This is a a real person, you know, and we know that from her college yearbook, and so we know a little bit about her. And I like knowing that. I like knowing those things. Okay. Oh, and here's one of her classmates. I'm sorry that I didn't use you. You look like a lovely person as well. I'm sorry that I chose Norma. Well, let's look and see. Except I don't know what this girl's name is. I'm going to look and see if I can find her elsewhere. She has an interesting look. I might find another picture of her somewhere in this same yearbook. I feel bad I'm choosing Norma here. It's not a competition. There we go. And just this little washi tape will help hold everything in place. That's going to do for now. There we go. I have kind of a little bit larger than usual journal cover here. I'm not certain that this is where that belongs, but you can see what this would look like if I did, you know, some sort of a journal about, you know, 1950s women or something like that, and just had a lot of other images from that same yearbook. I think that could be, you know, sort of an interesting piece. Anyway, especially if you know, if you have a Norma in your life, or, you know, somebody special that you would like to frame to put on the cover of a journal, you can use this method. Now, let's go back to our corrugated cardboard and finish up our last little bit of decorating here. We're not going to make a big mess here, so I can set that aside. Oh, what a mess I have. I've got to do something about this. Stuff is everywhere. There we go. And let me get out some of my little paper flowers. I think I like the ones best that I put the little brad through. I have 3 flowers. And you can see that I did do a little distressing after all this gesso dried. I did do a little distressing there. I think I don't want to use the pearls. I'm going to use the flowers that have the brads in the middle. I'm going to use the coral in the green color scheme. Maybe I'll have 2 up in one corner and 3 down here. How does that look? It's kind of the same decorating that I did with that baby picture, but you know, I'm kind of on that kick right now. Do I want to distress these little paper flowers? I might as well, for the ones that are showing, just a little touch of that vintage photo, and then just a little bit of because these are paper, gluing them onto the cardboard will be a paper to paper adherence, so I really don't need to get out my my Fabri-Tac. Yeah, I'm just going to go for this. 3 and 2, 5 all together. There we go. And then we'll see if we could see what our friend Louise looks like in this vintage style frame. Here she is. I'll put her here waiting for us. And you could put little ribbon bows. You could put a cluster if you like clusters. That's the type of thing that could go nicely there. What if Louise were your grandma? What if you had a photo of your grandma? Or of yourself? from back in the day that you wanted to preserve in a totally easy to make picture frame. Let me put some of this washi here around Louise, and then we'll lower. Oh, this washi tape is really awful. It is old and not terribly sticky, but it'll do for the moment. So we can get Louise. Oh, doesn't she look adorable? Oh, she just looks so fresh and young and hopeful, and I think if I had the journal that was the right proportions, I think she would look absolutely fabulous on a journal cover. But for right now, I think I am going to put our two new friends, Louise and Norma. I think I'm just going to prop both of these young ladies up on a shelf in my craft room, and leave you with the hope that you enjoy making some paper picture frames out of materials that were headed for the trash. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.